Hello and welcome to my coverage of 8.1. We're going to cover the new British heavies and mediums that have just come out in the test server, and you can try that now by going to worldoftanks.com and downloading the test server client, and from there you'll be able to access all these tanks as well and give them a shot. So I'm going to cover all the tanks here in the British tech tree. I'll probably split them up by doing 2 tiers per episode, so that should break it out to about 5 episodes. And I'll cover everything from the Tier 1 Mark 1 all the way to the 2 Tier 10s. So let's go ahead and start with the Mark 1. The Mark 1 is a rather slow Tier 1 tank. It has about a 20 kilometer per hour max, and it is a grinding beast. It really has no armor and stands out very tall above the battlefield compared to some of the smaller tanks. The one nice thing is it does get a tier 3 gun which does 70 damage. That is more than the MS1's 45mm, which up till now has been the biggest high output of damage. But then again, when you're looking at some of the new stuff like all the autocannons and machine guns that people have in tier 1, those might be the way to go, because those will rip apart the British all the way up until probably tier 4. So something to keep in mind is those machine guns. Now, the tier 3 gun that the Mark 1 gets is a longer load time than the MS1's 45mm, so that is something to keep in mind when using this tank. And again, it has no armor to speak of, so be prepared that if you get hit, you're going to suffer, and it needs to be held back a little bit and let some of the lighter stuff, such as the Lull Tractor and the T1 Cunningham, take the brunt of things. It acts almost as a sniper, just like the MS1, and probably should be treated very identically. Now, with that being said, this is only again tested in the test server, and so all these tanks are subject to change. And again, they're only really facing off against other British players, or British tanks, because that's what everyone wants to play and try. So, from the Mark 1, we're going to move to the A13 Mark 1. So, the A13 Mark 1 features a Tier 4 gun with a drum mag and 5 rounds. Now, it does also have a Tier 3 gun, which acts as more of a sniper, and because it has more pen. So it's a toss-up as to if you want to be able to brawl or if you want to snipe. Personally, I could go either way. The tier 3 might get you going and might last you just long enough to keep going without much problems, not having to invest the time, money, and experience into the tier 4 gun. But then again, if you do have to go that route, it wouldn't be bad to probably pick it up, and it would end up benefiting you to go ahead and learn that, because as it looks, each of the tanks, the mediums and the heavies, kind of offset each other. So if you go about 1 or 2 tiers higher in one than the other, you're going to be researching a lot of the guns that the other branch will be using. So if you're running up and around a tier 7 medium British tank, then your tier 5s and 6s should probably be having their guns already unlocked for them. So that's something to keep in mind, as you might want to offset them. But it'd probably be more feasible and advisable to go offsetting it from the heavies to the mediums. So running about a tier or 2 higher in the heavies, because the mediums pick those up right about a tier or 2 later than the heavies do. So you'll unlock in one, not have to worry about grinding up that experience in the second. Now, as I was saying with the A13, it is a very, very fast tier 2 tank, running at about 50 kilometers an hour, and it really doesn't have much armor, but it is a smaller tank and sits lower to the surface, and it does have some relatively good gun depression to help it be able to snipe people. Now, it doesn't have much in the way of health, but the depression of the gun and the lower tank profile certainly do make up for this. Now we move into the Cruiser Mark 1. It is a massive crew size for a tier 2 with 6 crew members per tank, and that is a massive chunk of crew members for a intro tank. And that really does come into effect, because if you want to train all those people up, it'll take you either a lot more time with running them at 50%, or it's going to take you a lot more credits or gold if you run them at 75 or 100%. With that, it does also feature the Tier 4 pom-pom, which does have the drum magazine, but it does help in higher tiers, but there are other options, and, well, it's probably the better gun for that tank, whereas the A13 you had choices. It is relatively slow-ish, but not necessarily as bad as some of the others. Now, it is tall and easy to hit, not as low profile as the A13, but it does have slightly more health. The one thing though is, again, it does have absolutely no armor to speak of. The one thing though is it does feature great gun depression, and that'll go a long way in terms of you being able to stay hidden, stay below the ridge, or just only exposing your turret. And again, it's a very tall tank, so exposing just your turret helps out immensely compared to being exposing your entire tank. Now, moving into the Vickers Medium Mark II. The Vickers Medium Mark II has absolutely no armor. Does have higher health than all the others, but again, it is a tall tank, and it represents almost a sniper in a Tier 2. It does have a very high pin and high damage gun, but it is a little bit slower to reload than some of the others. Now, it is a slow lumbering behemoth, but if you play it right and you stick back in about the middle line or towards the rear and act again as a sniper, while your other tanks like the Cruiser or the the A13 march up, then you should be alright. Now, this tank really, then again, all the tanks suffer from the fact they don't have much armor. So, a way, or something that's noticed in the test servers at least, is that machine guns will just rip right through them. Anything that has the rapid fire rates or the high capacity magazines with rapid fire on each of those magazine rounds, all those will make a big difference when you fight the French. Even high explosive will make a huge dent, because they will not be able to deflect any of that. It'll just go straight through and do almost full damage. So you're going to start seeing that the British tanks are going to start getting a little slower, little heavier guns, but be susceptible to HE, machine gun fire, and quick sorts of tanks and rates of fire. It's going to be a trend for these tanks, and that's going to be interesting as they become almost a hybrid of the French and the Americans. So look for them, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this part of the look at 8.1. I covered the Tier 1s and 2s in this one, and next I'll cover the Tier 3 and 4. I hope you guys join me then. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next episode.